And great. And let me just
Okay.
and mute everybody. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. We're going to talk about Hanukkah today. So we're halfway through, fourth day. And what I wanted to do today is to share, in honor of there being 8 days of Hanukkah, I wanted to share 8 thoughts. It might morph into more, but I wanted to share 8 points of light to hopefully illuminate your Hanukkah and give you something to talk about, think about, do, etc. And it's interesting, I just came back, the appointment I had was I'm meeting a new physician. Our physician retired, so we had to get a new one, and this was the day that we could go. And he said, like, what do you do? I said, I teach classes to women, to Jewish spirituality, holidays. He goes, oh, it's Hanukkah now, right? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, my friend told me that's like not such a very big deal. I'm like, well, that's not correct. I said, it's actually a very big deal. I said, it has different restrictions. So it's not like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but it's a very big deal. It's a very big holiday. So he's like, oh, well, I'll have to tell them. I said, well, just tell them you heard it from a good, reliable source. So we know it's a big deal. Hanukkah is very special. And I wanted to share, just even before we get to the 8 points of light that I wanted to share with you, I learned something very interesting that I wanted to share. You may have heard in the past talking about the difference between the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai, about how the menorah should be lit. Does that sound familiar? That Shammai thought we should start with 8 and then go down to 1, and Hillel was 1 and increased to 8. So on one hand, what I'd always heard, this doesn't mean that's not true, that it was a matter of the oil, that the oil, even though it lasted for the 8 days, did decrease and diminish, and so that there should be less. But what I heard was something completely different connection, which was tying Hanukkah to Sukkot, and that is because when the Jewish people rededicated the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, they had not been able to celebrate Sukkot before that time. And so the first Hanukkah was actually a Sukkot redo. So there's some who say that they had Lulav and Esrog, that they did like a Sukkah celebration. And like Sukkot really kind of has 8 days, kind of. It's the 7 plus Shemini Atzeret, which is the 8th day. And the 8th day, and that's why they wanted to have an 8-day celebration, that it wasn't just, oh, we'll see how long the oil lasts. Oh, it happened to last 8 days, that's what we'll celebrate. They were looking to have an 8-day celebration, and it was modeled on Sukkot, which is a time of expressing thanksgiving and gratitude, which is what Hanukkah is all about, thanking God for all the miracles. So why does this have to do with the lights? If you look in the Torah, the sacrifices that were brought to the temple on Sukkot start off with a large number and they diminish each day until we're left with 1. And so that's what Shammai was talking about, is that the candles should reflect the sacrifices that start off with a lot and then they decrease each day until there's 1 left. And that's what he was going for. That he said, if it's going to be like Sukkot, that's what we should do with the lights. It should be the same thing as the sacrifices would have been for Sukkot. So it's not a tie-in we usually think about, though I think about how fast time is going. It feels like it was just Sukkot. So here we are, Sukkot and Hanukkah. They feel like they are on top of each other. But the first Hanukkah was like a Sukkot redo and a time of thanksgiving. So the prayer that is said, and I have to say, growing up, and we still haven't incorporated this, there is, after you light your candles, there is a paragraph that is said, not the Ma'al Tzur Rock of Ages one, but it says, these lights we kindle upon the miracles, the wonders, the salvations, and the wars that you performed for our forefathers in those days, in this time, through your holy priests. And all 8 days of Hanukkah, these lights are sacred, and we have no permission to use them, but only to view them, thereby to give thanks and to praise your great name for your miracles and your wonders and your salvation. And this is we say this after we light, and there's a melody to it. And you can find it in your prayer book. If you look someplace where it has the Hanukkah candle lighting prayers, it will have this paragraph as well. I have to say, I always thought it was just kind of like a little add-in thing, but you're actually supposed to do it. As I said, we're still working on that, still building our Hanukkah celebration and practice here. But what I want to emphasize is that they are meant to give thanks and praise. Thanks and praise. And each day of Hanukkah, Hallel is recited. The complete Hallel is recited just as it is on the other festivals. So actually on Pesach, the intermediate days of Pesach, it's only half Hallel is said. Hanukkah is the most number of days that the complete Hallel is said. You don't say Hallel for nothing. So Hallel is the indication that this is a very big deal holiday. So what I said to the doctor is, it's true. Hanukkah is not Christmas. And that's what I think people are responding to when they say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal. It's just not Christmas. It is a completely different holiday. So that's the Hanukkah, that's the tie into Shammai and why he was interested in the lights going down, but Hillel prevailed because when it comes to light and holiness, we should be going up. It shouldn't be tied to the sacrifices, it should be tied to holiness and to light in and of itself. So I wanted to share that with you since that was hot off the press information that I had. Okay, 8 points of light to think about. These are all collected from different Divrei Torah, some from Yeshivat Shalavim, where our son is a Rebbe. They did a collection of having people give Divrei Torahs, little short vignettes that I listened to and thought were really inspiring and helpful. So that's what I'd like to share with you. Okay, the first one is that on Hanukkah, it says we should consider ourselves to be like Kohanim. It says the Kohen Gadol, Aaron was the one who lit the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, I should say, in the Mishkan before the Beit HaMikdash was built. But it was the job of the Kohen to light the menorah. Now, we don't do other things that the Kohanim did. So, for example, we don't do sacrifices. We don't go into the ark and do anything, into the Holy of Holies. We don't do any of the other things that were the jobs of the Kohen. The one that comes the closest to it are the descendants of the Kohanim directly, the descendants of Aaron, who do the priestly blessing. So they do that as Kohanim. But there's nothing for like the average Jewish person to do that is like the Kohen, except to light the menorah. And specifically because of that, the menorah is not called a menorah. It's called a Chanukiah. And it has 8 candles rather than the 7 which are on the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, just to differentiate so we know that we're not really doing the menorah lighting like the Beit HaMikdash. However, we are in fact emulating that, and that we are the Kohanim, and that we are then, which we can also then understand that since the mitzvah of lighting the candles is on the house, like a Beit HaMikdash, that our home, our Jewish home is a Mikdash Me'at. It is a miniature sanctuary, and we are the high priests of it. So we're the ones who create the spiritual atmosphere and the holiness that is supposed to pervade that space. And we do it when we think about the lighting the menorah and being like the Kohanim. I think this is even more and more important in our days when so many people look to the rabbi and to the synagogue as the place of holiness. And I'm not sure what people consider their own little private home space. They consider it not that. Hanukkah comes to say the real central institution of the Jewish people is the Jewish home, and that you are the Kohen, you are the priest of your home, and you're going to light the menorah and bring light and illumination and clarity to your house. So you are a Kohen, a Kohenet, I guess. Okay. The second is, and please, if you have questions or comments or anything after each of these, please feel free to unmute and ask or raise your hand so I can see what you have to say. The second one is that there's an unusual halacha, and I learned this today from my husband, from Rabbi Friedman, who shared the interesting halacha that says that Hanukkah is unique in that if you see somebody else's menorah that is lit, and let's say you haven't lit yet, you can make a blessing on somebody else's menorah. Now that's really interesting because you can't make a blessing. If you see somebody else shaking a lulav and etrog, you cannot make a blessing for that. If you see someone sitting in the sukkah, but you're not sitting in it, you can't say a blessing over there sitting in the sukkah. You have to be the one to do it. Hanukkah is unique in that you can say a blessing. You walk by someone's house and you see that they have a menorah and you don't have one. You can make a blessing on that. This is a fascinating halachic issue, but it speaks to something that is deeper that I think is really beautiful. So this came from Rabbi Friedman was quoting, saying that the beautiful message about this is to have an attitude about blessing what other people have. If we make a blessing on what other people have, and to think about that going all the way back to the beginning of human history, that if Cain would have made a blessing on Abel's sacrifice that was accepted by God when his wasn't, that human history would have had a dramatically different trajectory. And how beautiful for us. And I have to say, Rabbi Friedman, Rachel, that is Rabbi Joey Friedman, was our rabbi at the Daf Minyan, and Steve does Daf Yomi with him every morning. This is not a quote from him. He was quoting, I don't know if it was Rav, it may have been from Rav Kook, as a matter of fact, it may have been from Rav Kook, that we have the ability to bless what other people have. I think in this day of Facebook, when people are presenting, totally understand, everybody's presenting all the wonderful things that are happening in their life. Here's my vacation, here's my car, here are my beautiful kids, here's my amazing this, that, whatever it might be. I'm not sure if a blessing comes to mind that we share it as if it were ours, that it's more like, ugh, like, well, how come they get to have all the fun and where's mine? That if we have a blessing on our lips for what other people have, it counts, and it changes the world. The other thing that would change is if things would have been different, and if Abel would have said to God, I only want my sacrifice, my offering to be accepted if my brother's is too. And how many of us do that, where we have something and others don't, and says, I want the other person to have it too. So it's interesting, kind of a little bit reversed in this. There is, I don't remember the name of the organization because I just thought of this. There's an organization where you can call in if you want to say, to pray for something that you yourself need, is to pray for somebody else who also needs the same thing. And that this sharing of that, I make a blessing over what you have because I'm so happy for you, and I share it as if it were mine. And if I have something that I want you to have also, that I also want you to be gifted and to have. A lot of it's like wired in us since when we are infants. You do not have to teach a child to want to have more than the next person. You can just look, and I won't name any names, but have seen recently, little people. It's like, if the other person doesn't have, that somehow makes what they have better. It's like, well, did they get? Well, if they got, it's not as good. If I get and they don't get, then it's good. And it's beautiful when you see, because I also saw this, I want to have for the other one too. So I saw that of a gelt being given out, I want to give. And somebody at the Chabad thing they were giving out the spinning dreidels that light up. And my granddaughter, who's 8, hers was cracked and didn't work. And so her little brother said, Laura, close your eyes. And he had 2 dreidels and he gave her 1. And he said, I want you to have 2. And but those are moments that you kvel over, because that's not what, I'm not saying that went on 24/7. That's like what you teach people to do, because the natural instinct is, I want to have more than the other person. They've done research with very intelligent, I'm sure, fine, upstanding people, asking them, would you rather have, I forget the number, would you rather have $100 and everybody else has 50, or would you rather have 200 and everybody else also gets 200? And they would rather have 100 and everybody else have 50, because there's something in us that wants to just top other people. And those are the people who admitted it. I'm not sure about the rest of us. So this is the blessing, is to think about making a blessing on other people's candles. And it's not that you have to go around, hopefully you all have menorahs and you're making a blessing on your own, but to use it as a metaphor, as I can bless somebody else's light. And we can use it as a ongoing metaphor, is to bless someone else's light as people have their times when they're shining. They got a promotion, they were elected to something, they were honored, they were whatever it is, something is going really well for them, is I can bless their light. And that is a place to be. So that's something to keep in mind for Hanukkah and all year round. Bless the light. Okay. The third idea is about the purity of the oil that was used for the kindling of the lights at the time of Hanukkah. I think we may have discussed previously that pure oil was not halachically necessary. They could have used any oil. It did not have to be pure. However, there is an idea that when you are doing something for the first time, you want to do it extra well. You want to take extra cares, like starting off on the right foot. It's, like I still remember the first day of school. Nobody wanted to miss the first day of school. It seems like it would like throw off your whole year. And you didn't want to, if your mother would have said, we'll get your school supplies next week. It's like, no, you have to have them like when school starts. You have to do it right from the beginning. So because Hanukkah means not only dedication and education, but inauguration, the way we inaugurate something gives us a huge lead in the trajectory of how it's going to go. So they wanted to have pure oil because the whole point was to have as pure of an experience as possible, especially to go opposite of the desecration that had happened in the temple by the Syrian Greeks. So to inaugurate and start off the best foot. I think people do this. We're coming up to January 1st. People talk like inaugurating their year. There is a sense of excitement and wanting things, even like on a Monday or whatever it is, to start something. You start something new, start something fresh. And that's the question to ask us. Remember I think I had a poster that said, today is the first day of the rest of your life, is to realize that every day we are really able to inaugurate the day and inaugurate our lives. We do want to have a memory of what we have done in the past, but we too often let it pull us down in some way. Either we have low expectations of ourselves, or we don't have energy, we don't have enthusiasm, whatever it might be. That to counter that is to inaugurate every single day. Aaron, the high priest, it says that he did that when he lit the menorah every day. It says he did it fresh as if he were doing it for the first time. People talk about, I'm reminded of, for those who have been, either if you had or if you've been to a bridal shower, and you see the bride opening up, her pots and pan set, and here are the tablecloths, and here is the dishes, and thank you, these are beautiful, just what I wanted. And everyone's so excited until those same dishes and those same cloths turn into your pile of dishes and your laundry when you start living in your house after like about 6 months. It's like, the dishes. It's like, hello, those dishes were gifts that you were just, swooning over just a few months ago. Where's your inauguration? So this idea of Hanukkah is to re-inaugurate our homes, to take a fresh look at our homes, to re-inaugurate our lives, our daily to-do things. How can I have a fresh approach to what I am doing? Fresh approach in my job, fresh approach in a relationship, fresh approach in my whatever, exercise, anything that we choose to put an inauguration into, that energy is going to transform what it is. And that is an opportunity we have. I noticed that whenever we come back, we just came back from Florida on, when did we come back? Tuesday night. Whenever I've been gone from my house for, I'd say more than like a week or more, when I first walk into my house, it's like I see it with fresh eyes. It's like I mean, obviously my house is not like I don't recognize it, but I see things differently. And that we can choose to have some inauguration eyes, to look at things with fresh eyes. Sometimes when I see that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so dusty up there. I can't believe I haven't seen that. It's like, I need to go get the Swiffer out immediately. But it is like, this is so nice. I'm so happy to be here. This is so beautiful. So inauguration, in whatever way, shape, or form that takes for us, is something that Hanukkah gives us an opportunity to focus on. The next one is that When we say the blessing for Hanukkah, the blessing is Lahadlik Ner Shel Hanukkah. Actually, in Chabad, they say Lahadlik Ner Hanukkah. They don't say the shell part, which is fine. That's a different tradition. Whichever one you say, Lahadlik Ner Shel Hanukkah is in the singular. It's in the singular. You're lighting one candle, one flame. So that's interesting. That works for the first night, but why don't we say Lahadlik Nerot? Why don't we make it plural? Why is it only one? So this comes to teach us and talk to us about the idea of singularity, and that is that there is really only one light. There's only one light, and it gets, it goes into different, what is it, like refracted, okay? Like light is refracted into different colors. There's really only one light. There's really just the white light. That Hanukkah is telling us about that because the menorah itself in the Beit HaMikdash was made out of one piece. It says that was one of the things that when Moshe was in the desert and God gave the command to build the menorah, he said, I don't get how to make it. And it had to be out of one piece. It couldn't be, soldered on. It had to be made out of one piece. Since the menorah symbolizes spirituality as well as wisdom, it is really to teach us that there is really only one singular light that is refracted into different colors. And when we are able to see the underlying unity of all things and really all people and everything, that we are all coming from one source and that there is an underlying achdus, and which means unity from the word echad, that gives us an opportunity to be able to see other people as part of our oneness. It's interesting. When I was in college, I was very happy. I had to give a speech about the benefit of a liberal arts education. And at the time, I was majoring in Spanish and in economics. And I had taken calculus. And I said, I find it really interesting that calculus is used both to describe things in economics, as well as in astronomy, as well as in math, as well as in engineering, as well as in everything. That there is an underlying description that really holds everything together, and to be able to study that and see the source. And it's really then seeing God. It's why scientists are really looking for the theory of everything, that they keep looking. They're looking for the theory of everything, meaning there is one simple explanation for everything. And we call that Hashem. God is the explanation for everything. And everything is just a manifestation, and all the variety and differences and everything that we see are just, it's the light has been refracted. When we were in Florida, there are a lot of like little lakes there, and there was a fountain, and the sun hit it after a very brief rainstorm, and the fountain itself was making a rainbow, and you could see all the colors in the rainbow just in this fountain. It's like, that is so fascinating that all the colors are there, but it's really only one light. So this is the light about the Lahadlik Ner, to kindle the flame, the light, and to see that everything is all coming from one place. This ties in to the next piece that we want to talk about, which is, we know that Hanukkah celebrates the miracle of the oil and the miracle of the military victory. The question is, why was there a miracle? Why were there miracles? Did somebody do something that made the miracles happen? What was their trick? How did that military victory actually happen? There's some interpretations that say that the number of Maccabees who initiated the rebellion, that there were 13 people against the Syrian Greeks. I don't know about you, but that's looking like a losing proposition to me. 13 people waged war. Like, how did they do that? So we have I'm just going to turn for a moment to the Haftorah that we have for Hanukkah. The Haftorah for Hanukkah is that ends let's see, where is it? Okay. These are going to be familiar words to you. It says, not through armies and not through might, but through my spirit, says Hashem, master of legions. So you've all heard the song, not by might and not by power, by spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Okay, so not by might and not by power. So this was this was the call of the Maccabees. This is from the Haftorah. It comes from the prophet Zechariah. It's the Haftorah for the Shabbos of Hanukkah. It'll be this Shabbos is the Haftorah. That's how it concludes. And it ends there too as well. Okay. That's the second to the last verse. Not by might and not by power, but by my spirit. So it says, okay, what does that mean? Is that what the Maccabees said? Not by might and not by power, but by my spirit, but they still fought. So what does that mean? So it's like, well, what was the cause of the miracle? Clearly, it wasn't their weaponry. It wasn't their ability to fight. They were Kohanim. That's not what they did. So what was it? It was a spiritual battle. So now, in this day and age, when people don't use a dial to tune into a frequency on a radio and you just punch in what you want, it's harder to understand, but we're all old enough that we understand this. Most of us are. There's a spiritual frequency that the Maccabees tuned into. And that frequency is called the oneness of God, that there is only God, there is nobody else, and God has all the power. That's it. And by tuning into that frequency, because that's what they believed and they acted on it, it opens up the channels for miracles to happen. So what were their battle cries? One of them you may know. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Who is like God of all the powers? That's where we get the word Maccabee. That's the acronym for those words. Mi is mem, that's of the Maccabee. Kamocha is the kaf. Ba'elim is the bet. And the Yud He Vav He name of God starts with the Yud, is the E. That spells Maccabee. So who were the Maccabees? They were the Mi Kamocha Ba'elim Adonai. Who is like you, God of all the powers? That was who they were. That was their battle cry. That's what gave them the strength, because they were actually tapped into this infinite power. It's like hooking yourself up to the power grid, but you go like right to the power station and you don't just use an outlet. You are at the source. They were connected to the source and then had access to that, and that magnifies and totally changes the whole equation of what happens. So that was one. The second was, and it was really, you could say it was really the first, was Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, which we all know. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. There's only one God, and God has all the power. That phrase, if you go to count the letters of the Shema, if you count up each of the letters in that phrase, in that sentence, that is our affirmation of God's unity and God's oneness, equals 25. Okay, so 25 letters make up the Shema. The word Hanukkah means Chanu, they rested or they encamped, Ka. Kaf, He, Kaf is equal to 20, and He is equal 5. They encamped in 25. What does it mean to encamp in or to rest in? They rested in 25. So there's some understanding that says that's when the battle ended. It ended on the 25th, or it ended on the 24th. They did the rededication on the 25th. It says it's deeper than that. That's like, okay, so that's the day. It's like July 4th. Okay, is that really all it means? It's not what it means. Hanukkah. They encamped in and lived in 25ness, the 25 letters of the Shema. That's where they lived. It's like God's oneness and God is the only power. That's where they were at. In that realm, that's where miracles happen. That's where they can be triggered, is to be in that realm. So this means something very interesting for you and me, which is the same thing is true for us. When we are in that realm, we are open the channels for miracles happening in our own lives as well. And the blessing that we say when we light the Hanukkah candles, when we say Bayamim Hahen, in those days, Bazman Hazeh, at this time, at this season, it means that we're not just like, oh yeah, that was so lucky for them, they're so great. It's like, no, this is now. This is now, right now. We have the same opportunity. Now, it's not limited to this period, this time period. This is for always. But at Hanukkah, especially, it's easier to get in the door. It's easier to get in the door. We have more props. We have the lights of the menorah. We have the song. We have the dedicated days. We have the focus. We have the Hallel. We're given all the props that we need. It's like, why is it easier to go on a diet and eat healthy when you go to a health food retreat? It's like, because you're surrounded with healthy food and you have people talking about it. That's why. And when you go home, it's hard. Because when we enter each of these holidays, we enter into a zone where we can access this mindset, the spiritual connection that we all have. We all have it, and we can get into it more easily. So the trick is Shema Yisrael, the Mi Kamocha Ba'elim Adonai, and what is the corollary to all that is the expression of gratitude. As we said before at the beginning, when we light the candles, we're talking about we are giving thanks to God for the miracles that are with us. And we say this every day, 3 times a day. In the Shemona Esrei and the Amida, we talk about thank you for the miracles that are with us morning, noon, and night, constantly. So we say that, we kind of rip through them, but when was the last time we really said thank you? And we can say thank you even if the miracle is in the process of unfolding. We don't have to say, when I see it, I'll believe it, and then I'll say thank you. It's like, God, I know you're the source of this. You are the only power. You're the one who makes things happen, and thank you for everything you've made happen, and that you are making happen, and that you will make happen. And being in this place, that's the miracle zone. Then we trigger it. This was very good news to me to learn this. So it says, you want to trigger miracles? That's where we are. God, you're the only one. So I may have shared this with you before when I was going through a difficult time and our kids happened to be here from Israel. This was years and years ago. So our son was with our grandkids at, I don't know, they were someplace where they were painting. And my son painted me a sign like in like kids' watercolors and said that Hakol bidei shamayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven. Everything is in God's hands. It's like everything is in God's hands. So how does that make you feel? It's like you're in good hands with Allstate. You know, everything is in God's hands. So it says when you do that, then you also have the courage to step forward yourself. Because notice that the 2 miracles were not sit back miracles. They were like, okay, God, you're the power. I'll be sitting on my couch waiting for you to show me your stuff. It was, you're the power, and the power is going to flow through me and through whatever physical world thing there is, whether it be through the oil or through the might of my bow and arrow. You're in charge of it. The power is coming from you, and I'm just the vehicle. I am just the vehicle. But we have to show up to be the vehicle, because it doesn't happen for nothing. There has to be some sort of action. The action could be minimal and certainly not commensurate with the results. What the Maccabees did bore no resemblance to the results that they achieved. It had nothing to do with it. The amount of oil they had bore no resemblance to the impact that it had. And that's what we talk about, is like it went above and beyond the natural limitation, the natural barrier. But when we said before about that frequency, if you think of like nature being here and the frequency that we're at is being up here, the Shema Yisrael and the I'm just going to say Maccabee for short, Mika Mocha Ba'elim Adonai. I'll say the 25 of Shema, those letters, and the Maccabee being in that frequency, that channel is the miracle channel. It's above nature. That's the definition of miracles, above nature. That's where we want to be, is swimming in that channel. Now, one of the ways we trigger that is when we ourselves go, and this is the next light to share, is we ask God to perform miracles for us and go above and beyond the natural limitations, restriction of the way things are going. That means we need to also. It's like when we go above our natures, and I'm not talking about, physical prowess. I'm talking about our natures, our characters. When we are more patient than is our natural way of being. When we are more kind, when we are more sensitive, when we are more generous, when we are more yielding to other people, all of those things, when we go above and beyond, that opens up the channel as well to say God will also go above and beyond, because it's a relationship. Probably one of the worst metaphors that people ever had about God is some old man, with a white beard sitting in the sky throwing lightning bolts down at the people below. It's like nothing could be further from the truth. First of all, it's the most immature, pathetic description ever, but it doesn't even make any sense. Our understanding is we are in relationship with God, and there is a, I'm not gonna say quid pro quo, but there is a relationship. There is a midah keneged midah. There is a measure for measure. When we go above and beyond, it allows God to also go above and beyond, because it makes more sense, which is also why we don't have the couch potato approach to miracles of like, I'll just sit here and wait and see what you're going to do for me. It's like, go above and beyond. So there may be something, it may be a family gathering, it may be a relationship, it may be anything which requires me to go above and beyond my natural inclination. People spend so much time today saying, this is the way I am. You have to accept me the way I am, instead of saying, how could I be a better version of myself? Even if just for a few moments, for while the candles are burning, just like it doesn't have to be a lifetime commitment. It just means to make the effort, and making that effort is what triggers miracles. Okay, let's see if there is one more here. Related to the going above and beyond, Hanukkah is also unique in that you are supposed to go above and beyond to get light in whatever form for Hanukkah, like sell the shirt off your back kind of effort. We don't have that for very many mitzvahs. There is an obligation also for the 4 cups of wine at the Seder, that if you have to sell something precious in order to afford the grape juice to have that, you need to do that also. And you think, like you say, Hanukkah is a minor holiday. It's not anything. It's like, oh, yes, it is. Sell the shirt off your back, which I hope you don't have to do, in order to get candles for Hanukkah, to get light, get oil, get something of how important it is. Again, going above and beyond. And all of Hanukkah is about being above and beyond. The actual mitzvah that nobody is ever limits themselves to, the actual mitzvah is only to light 1 candle, 1 flame each night. That is the minimum requirement, but you're actually not allowed to do it. So it's called Mehadrin Min HaMehadrin. The Hidur, which is beautified above the beauty of making it above and beyond. So what do we do to make it above and beyond? We light 1, and then 2, then 3, and then all the way up to 8. And it's not just one person, but everybody in the house lights their menorah, and we get to have as much light as possible. This is called going above and beyond. Hanukkah is about going above and beyond. And when we make our effort to do that, we generate above and beyond, I'm going to call that above and beyond energy. We're in that realm of above and beyond. Because what happens when we are doing that? Think about people who go above and beyond in their effort. Who are those people, and what do they make happen? They make miraculous things happen to people who go above and beyond. People say they went above and beyond the call of duty. And you ask them, how did you do that? How did you do that? And they're like, I never even thought I would, but I did. They get into a place. We often see it in times of disasters. God forbid, something terrible happens and people go above and beyond the call of duty and really exert themselves in ways they didn't even know were possible. And that's called a miracle as well. And sometimes the struggle and the challenge is what brings out the miraculous behavior on our own part. It's like, who caused the miracle? I did. I went above and beyond myself. And when I go above and beyond myself, I'm also operating in a different frequency. I used to always read, and I still like to read biographies about people. I'm like, how do these people do this? They have the same 24 hours a day that I have. How do they do it? Whatever it is. I have a beautiful book that was written. It's called Amhabanim. It was written by a rabbi while he was fleeing from the Nazis. He wrote it while he was in hiding. And in the book, he says, I'm sorry, I don't have the source because I'm in an attic and I left my books got stolen by the Nazis and I don't have it. I'm like, seriously? You're trying to flee for your life and you're sitting and writing a book to help illuminate the world? Like, how are you doing that? In the end, he was killed. He gave his life defending a Jew who was being beat up by a Nazi, and they killed him. But his work survived. The things that he wrote all survived. He did not. So it's like, so it's amazing. So what we can achieve when we go above and beyond. I'm not talking about wearing ourselves out. I'm talking about accessing a dimension of ourselves that we don't often tap into unless we have to. That's why crisis often causes it, because we don't choose that. And people say, I wouldn't choose this, but I can't believe it. There's a story about a woman. It was like a grandmotherly kind of person. Like, I think she was like in her 60s, and she ended up like her grandson or grandchild was trapped beneath a car, and she lifted up the car and was able to get him out. And afterwards, she went into a big depression. People wanted to talk to her about it, and like, how did you do this? And like, wouldn't you be happy to talk about this? And she said, which finally, when she talked to somebody, she was like, no, it actually made her feel tremendous regret about her life, of how little she had demanded of herself and how infrequently she had gone above and beyond, just normal, that she had set such low expectations for herself. Not that you have to be going around and lifting cars off of trapped people, but sometimes when we see what we're really capable of, it triggers a fear of success, a fear of something like, I don't know, that's kind of scary what I could be if I really put my mind to it. So that's what Hanukkah is about, is where is the area in my life where there is an opportunity for hidur, for beautification, for increase of doing more. Again, I'm not talking about wearing ourselves out and making ourselves crazy. I'm talking about having an expanded vision of ourselves that we can live, that we can grow into and live up to. And that's a goal of Hanukkah. So nobody lights one candle ever, 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 ever. Everybody has a Chanukiah. Everyone increases the light. Everyone tries to have as much light as possible. And that's what we should be doing, is trying to have as much light. Ultimately, that light is our soul. Our Nishama is how brightly am I allowing my Nishama to shine. Most of us kind of keep it on the dimmer switch, like at a certain level. It's like, oh, this is fine. But what could it be if we really turned it up? And that's our goal at Hanukkah as well. Okay, let's see here. So we have that we're like a Kohen in our homes, our family. Our home is like a mikdash me'at. It is a miniature sanctuary. We are the ones who are in charge of creating the holiness and the purity of it. What we do in it, what we say in it, how we behave, all of it is us, and we as a Kohen, as a priest in our own homes, and we light the menorah, which causes the illumination that we want to have on ourselves as well as others. We have the Shema, the 25 letters, and that was the cry of the Maccabees of God's oneness, and the Mi Kamocha, the Maccabee, who is like God. There is no other power other than God, and being in that on that frequency is opening up the channel for miracles, making blessings on other people's flames, that it counts, that we can bless other people's light, what they have, their opportunity to shine. Just go through Facebook. If somebody has something wonderful, just post something saying, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. And it gives me a thrill to see you, whatever. Something really inspiring like that, as well as when we are with people in person. Lahadlik Ner, Hanukkah, the singularity of that flame, that really everything has only one source, and that the menorah reminds us of that. And it was made out of one piece. The inauguration, that when we start something, we want it to be the best. You want to have your new shoes for the first day of school. You want to have your fresh notebooks. You want to have everything. What can we have as far as an attitude of inauguration, of bringing a freshness and a vitality to what we are starting each day, whether it be something as, I won't say simple because it's not easy, an exercise program, an eating program, a learning program, how I relate to a certain situation, work that I have to do, the work of my home, to remember that all those things that I now have to wash and take care of and dust and vacuum and everything else at one point were gifts that I was very happy to get to open and to have. And how can I re-inaugurate and see my home in a new way and rededicate myself to it? And the final piece that we'll talk about has to do with publicizing the miracle. Is when we publicize a miracle, because that's the obligation for Hanukkah, which is why we light it in a public place, ideally in the window so other people can see it. That's part of giving thanks, is to publicize. Now, some people say, well, I shouldn't publicize it because it's not bragging, but it's publicizing from a place of gratitude. And when we publicize from a place of gratitude, that is considered holy. So Hanukkah is all about publicizing and being grateful for what we have been blessed with and showing a deep appreciation. And that appreciation and that gratitude is also the path to receiving more. When somebody is having something good happen to them, it's actually considered a really good time to ask for more good things. It's one of the reasons why we ask a bride and a groom to daven for us and daven for things, because they are having a very happy day that they are celebrating. It's kind of like, the heavens are open for them. So it's like, if somebody's having the heavens open for them, that's time to get our thing in too. You think like, oh, I shouldn't. It's like they're already so focused on themselves. It's like, we don't do that. It's like, when it's open, it's open. So we kind of, the pump has been primed. And when the pump has been primed for blessings and things like miracles, it's like, keep it coming. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So there is a book that's called Say Thank You and See Miracles. And it's just for daily things in our lives, and saying thank you for not just the good things, but even for the challenging things, because we don't know how things are going to unfold, and we don't know their ultimate purpose. We think we're so smart. We don't know why we do what we do, why we have what we have, all those things. It's really above our pay grade. We don't know. And just thanking God for all of it puts us in the place where miracles can happen. So just entering into that bandwidth there of above nature, getting into the level of eightness. Getting into the level of 8 is the level of miracle. 7 is nature, above nature is 8, and that's where we're going with Hanukkah. So we have miracles, and we can ask for miracles. There are some miracles that are considered part of the, let's see, how can I say this? Miracles that were part of the plan. It's like a script being written, that there are some scenes that are set, but then you can go to some kind of plays where the actors also have a thing where they interact with the audience. Those kind of plays actually make me really nervous, where the audience becomes interactive with the players. So they have their script, but then there's places for openings, and I don't know, they call in somebody and somebody goes up on stage and they do something. As I said, that makes me very nervous. But so that's the way our life really is that God has, the script is already written, but there are interactive parts to it. Our challenge is we don't know which is which. So we don't know if a certain thing is like, was this meant to be, or is this a place where I chime in? So since we don't know, we always chime in, because we don't know. It doesn't come labeled like set in stone options. It doesn't come labeled that way, so we don't know. So somebody asked me yesterday, it's like, how much can you pray for something? How much can you work towards something happening? I said, as long as you're willing to do it. Like, you don't know. It could be that's just like not the right time. It could be certain things have to happen to line up. Let's see, somebody told me this, I think, it was is Rachel Mashori. who I think it was you, Rachel, when you were talking about something, I don't remember what it was, but somebody who was having trouble finding their beshert, their person to marry, and they had gone to a Rebbe, and the rabbi said that the person hadn't been born yet. Like, well, that's a little alarming if you're like in your 30s, like, what do you mean they haven't been born yet? But it was actually somebody who ended up converting. So in a way, they had not been born yet. They had not become Jewish yet, and so the person wasn't ready. They weren't there yet, but they were still there. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. I thought that was you. And I saw your chat after the class, and I'm like, oh, that's such a great story. But we don't know how things are meant to unfold. So we can keep asking. Part of keeping asking is keeping our eyes open for signs that it could be happening. Because when we're asking, it means that we're focused on it so that we can see, oh, this looks like it could be leading me in the right direction. And having our eyes open for that. So we can ask. And if the answer is no, it may be no, not now. It could be no, but not in this way. Or it could be absolutely positively not. But we shouldn't be thinking that we're nudging God, because somebody expressed that. I just like, well, shouldn't I like really just like focus on like the really top 5 things and not ask for everything? It's like, no, ask for everything. That's considered honoring God, is to ask God for everything. Because we just said, God's the only thing, and God's the only power, and God has all of the power. It's not like your mother or your father, who did have limited resources in time, energy, and patience with you, and said, stop nudging me. But the infinite creator of the universe is not that. The infinite creator of the universe is infinite. So it's considered totally fine and totally good to say, Hashem, do this for me, and make, if it's the right thing for me at this time. And we say that you should answer our prayers for the good. So we want the miracles. We don't know if they're the miracles that are preset into the plan, or if it's a miracle like Hanukkah was actually considered a miracle that was dependent on the Jewish people. It was dependent on, the challenge was caused by the Jewish people assimilating and going completely off track. And the miracle was triggered by being on the right track. And so that was considered a miracle that was off, not part of the original plan, as opposed to the miracle of Purim, which was considered part of the plan. So how am I supposed to know if it's a Purim miracle or a Hanukkah miracle? It's like, you don't. So you just ask. And we try to be the people who are worthy of having all of the miracles happen. And that's the miracle of the 25, Shema Yisrael, and the Maccabees, who is like God, there is none other. And that puts us in a place that any miracles that should be coming our way, we are then the open receptacles to receive them. And that's what we want to be, and to be the people who are then taking actions that facilitate it. So it's the acronym for the Maccabees is Mi Kamocha Ba'elim Adonai, Mem Kaf Bet Yud. That's the Maccabee, who is like God. And that was on their shield. And Judah, Yehuda HaMaccabee, he was called that. So it's funny that the person who was the best warrior, that where was his strength coming from? He didn't go to warrior school, ninja, whatever. He went to the school of not by might and not by power, but by my spirit, says God. And that's where we're at. And I think especially in these days when there's so many challenges, we don't know, like, how do we respond to everything that's going on? The answer is still the same. Shema Yisrael, Mi Kamocha, and Maccabee. And those are our rallying cries. That's what we go out. That's what we go out into the world with. So we do have to put in an effort, and we have to go above and beyond. And we want to be worthy of miracles. We want to say to Hashem, I'm going above and beyond me, and I want you to go above and beyond too. This is why, and with this we'll close, that our sages teach that somebody who is humiliated in public and does not respond back has the power to bless. It's the power to bless. So because it is human nature to react and to talk back. So the person who takes it, and again, I'm not talking about being abused or something like that. I'm talking about the insults that come and the humiliations that come in our life, says that person is able to bless other people. and so that God will bless them. This is the same thing with Rachel. It says, why of Rachel is the person who is God looks to most favorably, of the person in whose merit the Jewish people will be regathered into the land of Israel, is Rachel, because she went above and beyond her natural inclination. She wasn't jealous for her sister. She gave the codes to Leah to spare her humiliation. And she says to God, I went above and beyond, and you need to do. And God says, stop your weeping, Rachel, and your merit. And it says all the other, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, everybody else went. God's like, no, 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 no. Rachel goes. She goes like, you, I'm listening to. So we have tremendous power in our own hands by our attitudes, by how we work on ourselves, by the mindset, the spiritual mindset that we cultivate. And this is not easy to do. This is not a one and done thing. Oh yeah, I'm good with this. God's the only one, all the power, I'm good. This is something we have to work on affirming and integrating on a daily basis. That's why we say the Shema is commanded to say twice a day. Twice a day, we have to affirm all of this because it's not so easy. Okay, so Rachel says, ask a guy how he would feel if he was given $1 million, and it's the rest of the chat. But you will not wake up in the morning, do you still want it? And the answer was, of course not. So the guy then says, well then, why don't you feel that every morning? Exactly, beautiful. This is like, we value waking up in the morning is the biggest miracle of all, truly, truly. So when I went to the doctors today and they have you fill out all the forms of all the things that you have and don't have, I was like, thank you, dear God. There are ailments there. I didn't even know what they were, to check off, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And I was like, thank you. So it's a big gratitude morning of like, and what medications do you take? I'm like, calcium and vitamin D. So it's like amazing. So yes, our health is the biggest gift. So Hanukkah is the time for total gratitude. And even though the Maccabees and the Hashmonaim, the Hasmoneans, they went very off track, and the whole thing ended very poorly years later because the Hasmoneans usurped kingship in addition to the priesthood, going against the Torah, and things went very, very badly. That being said, we celebrate Hanukkah for what it was then and what it can be for us in the future and what it is for us now. So light the flame, express our thanks, gaze at those lights, enjoy, be illuminated for this most magnificent and special holiday that has so much to teach us. It's like a week-long spiritual retreat without having to leave your home, and just to sit and enjoy. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer, or any other comments at all. Okay. All right. Well, I want to wish each of you a very festive remaining days of Hanukkah, and may you feel refreshed and renewed and rededicated and inaugurated to start the next chapter of your life, whatever it is meant to be, and it should only be filled with many, many blessings.
Thank you, Ellyn. Do you have a minute?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I was driving and I missed the first 16 minutes, and I know you cannot summarize it, but what did I miss? Because when I came, it was number 3. So I missed 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm going to upload the recording of it in just a few minutes, Gabi, to my website, and you'll be able to listen to it. If that's okay, because honestly, I don't remember which order I did it in right now because I didn't have it written down in order. So I apologize.
No problem. It was fantastic all what I got to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for sharing it with me, and that's the best, is sharing it. All right.
Will you put forward
I'll be thinking of your lights in your home as your lights. Oh, and one thing for people just to remember is tomorrow night, on Friday night, you light the menorah before your Shabbos candles, since you obviously can't light a flame on Shabbos. So you just want to make sure that that's done beforehand.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Take good care. Great to see you all.
Ellyn, will you repeat this on Thursday by any? chance?
This is, you mean, so
Oh, no,
today's.
today is Thursday. Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to sleep more. Okay.